So the body will do what it knows best to do. It protects you by going into shutdown. And then you'll have a big thing and you will have to make the time.
But if there are emotions which are being, like you're saying, tucked away, we've not addressed them, those patterns will just keep coming up, and that can then, after a few years, can manifest in the form of physical disease.
Stress is when the demands of the environment exceed our resources and capacity to deal with it. When you realize how long you've been disconnected from yourself, I think shame is the emotion that comes in, because you're quite annoyed with yourself. So what's happening in your body when you're holding all of that all of the time? It's inflammation, right? It's chronic inflammation over a period of time, and that is very simply going to make you unwell.
Hi, welcome back to the podcast. I think today's podcast was something that I think I was wishing for, and my wish was fulfilled, because I got a call from the person who manages the guest today, and she said that Divya Berry, who's the guest for us today, is going to be in Delhi, and she's actually based out of London. And so I just wanted to grab that opportunity because she is a trained psychologist. She is a counselor. She's a therapist who is working with clients in UK and India. And mental health has always been one of the topics that I wanted to cover in the podcast. And I don't think so anybody better can do this other than Divya Berry. So thank you so much. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming and gracing our podcast. Like I said, it's a fantastic way how things have just come together. You were coming, and I wanted always to talk about mental health, and I thought this is the best opportunity, and we can take the opportunity to reach out to the women audience on our podcast and talk about, how therapy, which is something that looks like a stigma, and there is a lot of taboo around it. If we can make people understand that it's something which is as simple as going for a checkup, to going to a GP if you have a physical issue. It is as normal as that to actually reach out to a therapist. So thank you so much for coming and talking to us today.
Thank you. I'm curious myself about stigma and taboo because I've seen that change over time.
Yeah.
And I feel it is a lot less now. I mean, of course, it can be even lesser, but it is a lot less now. So that's a really welcome change. And more people are talking about it amongst each other. And there are more and more therapists accessible and available that you can go and see. Not just in that normalized way of in a hospital setting or in a clinic setting, but just part of a way of life where you would reach out for a class, you would reach out for another type of therapy, whether it is yoga, reflexology, or strength training. So to go from that place of stigma to it's just like that, I think that transition has long begun now. So at least I feel from my point of view that we are there now. We've got a longer way to go with the generation before us, but perhaps in our generation we are there.
Yeah.
And it's become much more regular. I won't even use the word normalized. It's much more regular.
Yeah, which is such a great thing to happen, especially in India, where it was considered to be something that people never talk about. Depression, anxiety were not the things that were very common conversation in Indian households. So that has definitely changed, and I think with how things have evolved after COVID, the technology, how it has taken over, and the AI coming into the whole thing, the more screen time we are having, the less we are moving, and it's just, do you think that do you see a change pre-COVID and post-COVID? Do you think that there are more people now reaching out to you than before?
Definitely, and during COVID as well, there was a huge space for online sessions that developed then. In fact, I think our entire modality of training for how to work online as well as we would do it when we're in the clinic began around that time because we had to adapt and we had to adjust. And that in itself is a big part of what goes on in therapy, helping you adjust to what you can't change. Nobody could change the fact that you couldn't meet in a room in COVID. So everybody had to adapt to that situation. And I think that's how it went online, at least for me and a lot of my colleagues, that we learned to do this because there was no other choice. We learned to do it online almost the same as we would do it if we were in the room. And today it's become, for me, a huge part of my practice to be able to work online, whether I'm there or here. And I think a lot of people are following that as well. I do want to mention the Indian family, which is what you began with. The Indian family has got all of these gifts, all of these wonderful aspects to it. Every culture has their own, but it can at times be an advisory, and there can be a feeling of, we can contain everything for you, but we can't contain everything for you. So a lot of what I see, at least with the Indian community and people from India, belongs in the family system, which cannot be solved in the family system because the stigma is within there. Why can't I, as your partner or your mother or your cousin, help you with this? Why is it that you have to go outside of us? Because the us is primary, always. And that's fine. We are a collective culture. We are not an individualistic culture.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite important to prize that part of the culture, which is collectivistic, and say, this I can't do for you. Maybe you can go see somebody else who's trained to help you better with this. So we can still be there for what we can. And a lot of the stuff involves the family. So it's not going to get solved there.
Absolutely.
Right? It's not going to get solved there.
This is so true. Because we were talking before the podcast as well that I think this is where therapy can make a huge difference, is because sometimes when you start talking, you don't get people who have the listening skills, you know. Sometimes when a teenager wants to reach out to the parent, before they complete the sentence, they've been told, oh, you're not disciplined, or you're watching too much screen, and this is why this is happening, because I told you don't meet this friend, and kind of thing. So pehle hi aapko ek judgment mil jata hai. And sometimes it is all about listening, right? Like somebody gives you a space where people can listen to you. And also it's a safe space and it's a non-judgmental space. I think that's where I think therapy can really make a huge difference.
So when you said start talking, talking is where the magic happens. Talking and listening. Between talking and listening is where the magic happens. As long as someone is talking and as long as they have someone to listen to. And yes, ideally, if you can go to a trained person who can listen to, that's great. Another thing that we do is we would help someone do better at talking themselves to their child. Because that reaction someone has when their child comes to them could belong to their past, their history, their early time. It could be something unresolved in them. So our work then would not just be to give them tools and say, this is how you should deal with your teenager, because that's again advisory. It would be more, what's going on for you? And when we help them understand what's going on for them, they will have the inner wisdom and resources of how to deal with their teenager in their own way.
Yeah.
Which again is enabling tools for the person, not giving them another script. Everybody has scripts, right? We all have enough scripts that we grew up with that actually we are struggling to reshape and change into something that feels more adult. So especially in a parent-child interaction, the parent goes into a child state while dealing with that child. That child needs nurturing too. That child needs listening too. So maybe some of the work that we might do with a parent is not just give them tools for what they should do with their teenager, but really listen to them. What happened to you when you were a teenager? What kind of parenting did you have? And when we do that, we're not sitting to do generational blame game and go back to their childhood. We're just trying to understand what happened with you. What was your journey? How did you come to be this? What kind of parent do you want to be? And of course, what kind of child you have. But I think the real work is you. And I wouldn't want to comment more on children because I feel like there is such a wonderful domain of family therapists and child therapists who know how to do that.
Yeah.
But individual adult therapy is about supporting you. And when you receive that support, you will be able to parent better, whatever that better looks like. It's not following a particular guideline, but you will feel more enabled to do your job as a parent.
Wow, which is so good, right? Because I think with social media and whatever we are watching, we always feel that we are doing less. There is something that more we can add to the parenting, or we can do it this way, or we can do it that way. So there's so much of information coming that a mother always feels that she's not enough or she's not doing enough. And I think what you're saying is that if they work on themselves, then they can really cut out that noise that's coming from outside.
I like that word, cutting out that noise, because that's another tool that we would use. How do you cut out the noise? Then you cut out the noise, what do you do with what's left? And I think that's where therapy comes in again, because cut out the noise, a lot of people have learned to do. I've cut out the noise, now what do I do? Right?
Which is difficult.
Yeah. again, you mentioned Indian mothers, Indian systems feeling less. It's really interesting because, I mean, I've grown up here my whole life. I've been socialized in a very Indian way as well. But while Indian women are really prized, like the mother goddess and all of that, there is right from the get-go, from, I would say, feeding onwards, a feeling of, are you doing enough? Now, that comparison could be to the other women in their family. It could be the other idols or people that we worship as mother figures, but it's there right from the start. So social media and AI and what you're talking about, that proliferation has only made it more. It was always there. It begins with, how much are you feeding? Are you feeding enough? Did you have X type of birth or Y type of birth? Which school is your child gone to? It begins there. So this has only exposed it more. So I think it's worse. I don't think it's better. And one of the other sources of support, which I think my sense is that a lot of women don't use, is each other. Because there is a lot of shame, there is a lot of difficulty in sharing our struggles. And I understand why it's there, because you've got to receive an empathic audience to share your shame. And that's what happens in therapy. You have a pre-built empathic, non-judgmental person who is bona fide that. So you're able to bring your shame. What if we were able to do just a little bit of that for each other? I'm not saying friends should be your therapy. They can't. But friends can hold that space. Family can hold that space where you can bring some difficulty, some shame. And I think that's quite easy to do, just where we are, if we find that person. If we don't find that person, it's quite unsafe, because then you're bringing stuff that's quite difficult. And if it's not received well, you probably will never bring it again. You'll shut down. And if that shutdown is quite familiar to you from your childhood or your early times, the message that's coming to you from the environment is, I shouldn't bring my stuff. It's not safe. And that's what blocking is about. That's what disassociation about. It's about taking it back in and saying, it's not safe. I'm not going to bring it. And in therapy, of course, we have the training and the space to make that safe. But I'm just curious, how do we use this wonderful system of Indian families to our advantage, as opposed to it becoming a disadvantage? How is it true support? It's only true support when you know who I really am and what I'm about. And I'm going to know who I am and what I'm about when I'm free to explore that. So maybe everybody should have a little bit of therapy just to know that. And it doesn't mean you have to stay in therapy forever.
I was going to say that does therapy actually make you a better friend?
It does make you know yourself better. And knowing yourself better, it makes you a better everything. So whether it makes you a better friend or better something else, you know yourself better and you discover things that you had tucked away into other parts of you. So I think for me, therapy, and especially Gestalt therapy, is about going into those parts together and opening it together. So I use a lot of metaphors. So to give you an example, you and I are in therapy together. We're sitting and we're on a bench together and we're looking at this painting like it's in a gallery. And that painting is your life. And we're looking at it together. We're not looking at it like you and me sitting across and me taking notes. We're looking at the painting together and say, when did that blue happen? How did that happen like that? And why is that tucked away there? That's quite intense. What's going on there? And I will notice how you react to that, how your tone changes, your expression, your body language. And that is the phenomenological part of Gestalt. It's in the here and now. It's happening right as we speak. So I'm really tuned into everything that you're doing. Doesn't mean I'm watching you like a hawk. It just means I'm tuned in to how you're experiencing your emotions in the here and now. Because your body will give away those cues. Your voice will change. You'll gulp a bit more. You may shift a bit in your chair. And then I will ask you, what's going on there? I'm not going to say, right, this belongs to age 14. We're not going to do it like that. So a lot of it is doing it together. And I think that's how you know yourself better. Gestalt is a lot about awareness. In fact, it's all about awareness. And the belief is that awareness is in itself curative. So going back to your point, when you know yourself better and you are okay with yourself, I'm not saying you have to be thrilled with yourself, but when you're okay with yourself and you start getting comfortable with all the parts of you that you've tucked away, let's say we use that painting as an example, and there's a bit of pink hiding here, but it's hidden away. We're going to kind of bring it back in. And then you'll know yourself better. And then by logic, you may be a better friend and better everything.
Because I think it's at the end of the day working on yourself, right? Like everything then just boils down to this. Because I've been in this practice for 10 years now. And I read a lot about physical healing. And there is so much information out there which says that physical healing actually happens when you heal at a mental level first. So healing starts from your emotions and how you're feeling as a person. And that's when the real change starts to happen in your physicality. So it starts to manifest better in your body. But if there are emotions which are being, like you're saying, tucked away, you've not addressed them, those patterns will just keep coming up, and that can then, after few years, can manifest in the form of physical disease. Would you agree to that?
Yes, absolutely. And I think there are various ways of looking at that. It's not 1 + 1 = 2, as in you're upset and you have emotional blockages, so you're ill. It is like that, but it's not like that. It's a chronic buildup of inflammation. Let's say something is tucked away over time and it's not safe for you to bring it out. It means it will stay there till we make it safe. The idea is about you and about moving from what we call social support to self-support. So when you start supporting yourself more, you're going to disrupt a lot in your environment because people are also used to you being that way. Let's say you're really adjusting, you're really the person who always adapts to other people, like, we call it the adapted child growing into the adapted adult. That's a very convenient person for other people. It's a very inconvenient thing for yourself. So what's happening in your body when you're holding all of that all of the time? It's inflammation, right? It's chronic inflammation over a period of time. And that is very simply going to make you unwell. How that unwellness manifests belongs to your biology. So I don't want to say that this is discounting the need to go see a doctor, or this is discounting labs and tests. There's no substitute for that. But that's just giving you a marker. You already know when something is amiss and something is wrong, and it's stored stuff, it's old stuff that's pent up and built up. So inflammation does cause unwellness.
100%.
And it begins, I think, with what you're thinking and feeling, and also what you've tucked away.
Because inflammation is one of the key things that we have. It's become like that. That one term, which actually basically becomes like the root cause of everything in terms of physical manifestation of a disease. So everything, like even if we are talking about diabetes, insulin resistance, we are talking about gut issues, everything then boils down to inflammation. Or do you have inflammation? So everything boils down to inflammation. So when we are addressing the inflammation, and when we make plans for our clients, we talk about diet, of course, because diet can be anti-inflammatory, and that has remarkable effects that you can see on your body. But at the same time, we do put in there a little bit of meditation, a little bit of pranayam, just for the sympathetic nervous system to just calm down a little bit.
Absolutely.
And then, that's when you feel like, inflammation starts to come down, really. So I think that's where I think that we need to connect those two dots, where, when you have some physical manifestation of a disease, don't only look at it, okay, am I exercising, am I eating right, but also address the fact that how you're feeling on a daily basis.
Absolutely. So working integratively, which may be a word that is being used and flogged, but there is no substitute for that word, because working integratively also means if someone comes to me, I might say, listen, I can't help you with this aspect. You need to go do some body work. You need to go do some yoga or breathing or some other technique that is going to support you. And we work together. And for me, that integrative way of working is also about psychoeducating the person about this body-mind connection, because there is a lot of myths going around it. And people are quite sort of hesitant and resistant to this idea that what's happening inside quite literally affects you on the outside. I also feel in 2025-6, for instance, women have become really, really aware of their bodies, which is fantastic. There's a lot of conversation about perimenopause, menopause, and it's come at the time that the awareness is building. So I've also heard people saying, why are we talking about it so much? We're talking about it so much because we finally come into our awareness. It so happens that this generation of women is going through that transition at the same time. And hence the conversation becomes a lot more relevant and topical. It doesn't mean people have become obsessed unnecessarily. So whenever there's an order changing, a lot of people won't like it because it's disturbing the order, the conventional order of things, right? And it's also causing people and families to take responsibility for what they may be doing to each other to cause that inflammation. So when you mention something like diet, it's interesting because you may tell someone, why don't you eat better? there may be several situations ranging from financial ability to not having kitchen space to things we can't even imagine, which they'll never say, that contribute to them not eating better. So I think that's really where we're not asking you why. We're just saying, you're not being able to eat better. What's going on there? What is happening in your home or your commute or your travel? There may be a woman who's at work and her commute and travel is such that she leaves early in the morning and that's the lunch that she's taken. And she's got to come back and, look after her family. There may be a man who has to do that as well. I'm not saying it's only the women. But in that, the capacity to eat that meal that is going to regulate their body may not be there. So we are also interested, again, to bring Gestalt back. What is not being said? The person will say, yes, I will eat better. Why can't you eat better? What's going on for you in your home, in your biome, in your environment, in your kitchen, in your car, in your relationship that causes you to just swallow that lunch? So I think it's down to that.
Yeah. And again, when you said that swallow your lunch, and now we talk about mindful eating and how you need to eat with all your five senses and take a deep breath, say a small prayer of gratitude before you eat. All that, now it has scientifically been proven that it actually changes the way the food gets metabolized in your body, how you're feeling and what you're saying to yourself and how you're eating changes the metabolic pathways completely. So I think that's where I think the mental health, how you're feeling on a daily basis, can play a huge role in why somebody, after even following a lot of diets and doing everything to the T, is not getting better.
Yes, and that's a big question that comes. I'm doing everything you asked me to do.
Yeah.
From the physiological and the biological medical point of view, but it's not working. And I think that is the time to do much more deep work than just a few casual sessions. And I don't mean casual sessions like that, but that is the time to really take out the time to go deep. And I don't tell people to go deep just before a holiday or when they have a big life event, because they're not going to be able to take the time that comes. So let's say in the way that I work, I would say, can you take out 6 weeks? Can we both take out 6 weeks of time? Because I too am taking out those 6 weeks to work with you.
Absolutely.
And we're working together to see where we can go with this. But there's a time for deep work and there's a time that we can't do deep work. And there are other times where your body won't give you the choice. It will make the thing happen that causes you to create the time to do the deep work, because it's just done with giving you the signs that something's wrong. It'll start with a small ulcer. It'll start with something else. You'll go to all the doctors who will help you. But there's something else, that's going on that you don't know, that you refuse to make time for. So the body will do what it knows best to do. It protects you by going into shutdown. And then you'll have a big thing and you will have to make the time. So that's what I'm thinking when you're asking that question. And I can't help but go back to agency. What if I can't make the time to eat mindfully? So then I like to work with people on that. When they say I can't, then we go into why can't you? And then they often describe their life situations which actually they can't change, right? And that's what we work on. What if I can't change anything? Then what am I going to do about it? Am I going to then present myself as the difficult daughter, the difficult woman, the negligent mother, all these labels that have been received? Because I've now realized that there are things in my environment that are making it very difficult for me to even have that meal. And sometimes you can't. So the meal, and making time for the meal, for instance. So, for instance, somebody may say, well, you are the queen of your day, the queen of your time, you must do this. What if you actually can't?
Yeah.
Right? So firstly, there's quite a lot of shame in sharing what we can't do. There's a lot of encouragement and support from others in terms of self-help messages, positivity. There are life situations where we simply can't. And yes, it helps increase our awareness to what we're missing out on. But those are not always useful. So when you receive a message like that, you are the queen of your day. If you have shame around the fact that you are not the queen of your day, you will not be able to share it with that person. That person is just giving you encouragement and support, which is wonderful. But they're not there to listen to why you can't do it.
Yeah.
And that's the dark underbelly. Right?
So actually that is a practical problem that, because we have clients who come to us and they are software professionals. They log in at 9 o'clock in the morning. They log off at 10 o'clock. Where is the time? Like, if you can quickly say, make time for exercise, do this or eat well, there is no time. So how do you then with therapy, can you give them some tools as to how to find a way around this?
So the online session exists for them.
Okay.
Right? The online session, talking in the lunch hour, talking in their car, talking wherever they can.
Okay.
That session exists for them. And I, for one, go out of my way to make time for somebody who says, I've really just got these 2 hours. Can you give me a session in the lunch hour? Can we do it at this time? Because that is again me adjusting and them adjusting to what they really need. The person who does therapy in their lunch hour really needs it. They really want to benefit from it, and they will over time. And what we talk about and the tools that I may support them with, and again, it's not me giving them tools. We are making their toolbox together, right? Because I don't know if they're going to be able to do what I'm suggesting. Am I going to make a suggestion, or am I going to hear their story and together we come up with what they can do? I think that person really wants to make that change, and that's why they're taking out that precious time. So you have to also really want to be in therapy. You have to want to make that change for it to work for you. Otherwise, it's a lot of just venting and talking, and you need a space for that as well. Venting, being able to just share and slug it off. But I think that person, their tools will come from both of us together. How best can I work with what I can't change? Because what this is about is, what should I do about what I can't change? It's not about the other person changing, because we have to believe that the other person may or may not change. The work situation may or may not change. If I've got a boss who I deem as toxic, I will ask myself, firstly, what is the definition of toxicity, right? Is this person truly toxic? Am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling this way? So I'm really understanding the situation. There will also be enough people in my environment that say, no, this person is not toxic. It must be something that you're saying. So really that ability to go into myself in that quiet 1 hour that I have, or half an hour that I have on my commute. So I think luxury is a very interesting word, because the biggest luxury we have today is time. So the person who's doing a 9 to 10, maybe their commute is their time. Maybe that's where they want to hear some music and calm down. And maybe therapy is in the lunch hour or on a weekend.
Yeah.
But the tools that we discuss together will look very different from the tools that we give somebody who has a lot more time than that and has more open life situations which they're able to alter.
Right.
And I think that that's what happens when advice is given. It is generally given to all, and one size never fits all. And I think that's why people feel quite hurt, quite closed off, and quite ashamed to share why they can't do this wonderful suggestion that's being made. Why can't I do it? It applies to you, but not to me. So one size really doesn't fit all, just the same way one therapist doesn't fit all.
Yeah.
Gestalt may not be for everybody. Somebody may want to use a different modality. A lot emerges in Gestalt. So I do think that you have to be up for it. You have to want to use your body. You have to enjoy the here and now experience of it. And you have to be also willing to be challenged a little bit, right? Because I'm not just only going to sit there and hear you. I'm going to work with you to say, why are you feeling this way? What made you feel this way? What about you makes you choose that job? They may say, I don't choose that job. I have no option. I have to do that job. So for me, I'm very interested in that, because we tend to think that we are all belonging to the same socio-cultural milieu. We're not, right? Just like your audience or the people that I see. So it's about making space for everybody's experience as different from mine.
True. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about, if somebody comes to you who has a busy lifestyle and, there is no time, and then they come to therapy, let's say, and they've taken a few sessions with you. How does their life look like post-therapy? Like, how does it look like? Like, they still have the same things that they have to do, and they are hard on time, but how therapy then changes the way they are approaching it, and how does it really work on their anxiety? Do they feel less stressed under the same circumstances? Just take me through that.
So something like anxiety is quite measurable. And I'm not saying that I would administer a scale to see, are you better like that? But you would be able to see over time, are you feeling less anxious? Are you able to use the tools that we've built together to cope with the anxiety evoking situations when they arise? So that's quite, in a way, measurable, right? You can see it. The real change is not just in terms of, are you reacting better to things? That's an example. The situation hasn't changed. Are you able to react better in that situation? So that only the person can tell. So at about 6 weeks or 8 weeks, I would think the thing that's happened is some awareness has come in. Then is the work of getting them to use that awareness, because awareness is the cure. And by that, I don't mean you stop at awareness. You become aware, and it's quite difficult to resist that awareness, because once you connect with yourself, you're not just connecting with I've become aware of a problem. You have connected with yourself. And that's your natural orbit. That's your natural habitat. So it's actually irresistible to leave it then. So it does also disrupt, right? So if you have a big fat family wedding, maybe come to therapy after. Because if we do a lot of the deep work before, a lot emerges, and you may not have the tools to deal with. I'm using the word tools constantly because people ask, right, I'm feeling all this, what should I do?
Yeah.
My answer often is, we're doing. This is us doing. And at some point, you'll suddenly feel that shift. So I can't give you a timeline, but I'll be quite conscious when someone comes to me and says, I've got a tight schedule. These are my hours. I want to see this change happen. I will understand from them what's going on in their biome. Now, this is what we call the biopsychosocial model of care, where we are looking at the biology, not me per se, but a doctor would. But I'm hearing from them that these are my sort of biological, physiological issues, and psychological and social. What can I do? What can't I do? So I would say the awareness will come in quite quickly, and that is something that Gestalt brings. Then is the work of what are they going to do with this awareness?
Yeah.
I'm not saying I can't take responsibility for it. I'm very much partnering with them. But the pace will be determined by us together. And in this, the therapist in a Gestalt clinical room is a co-creator with the person. So we call it a dialogical therapy because it's based on dialogue.
Okay.
I bring myself to it with you. So we're going to work on it together. And it's measurable changes and also changes that they can't see. They may come back and talk to me and say, tell their story. And I might say, well, have you noticed? You're doing this differently. So that's a measurement of how, for instance, the anxiety reduced, or they found some other way to eat differently, or they found a way to deal with, let's say, the bully in their life where they can't change. In the Indian family structure or in a corporate structure, you may have toxic relationships, you may have a bully, you may have some narcissism. All three words that I know are thrown around quite casually. So I'm not using them casually. I'm saying when you encounter these people, these experiences, a way to find your way out of it. And I think that's where the measure lies. And I think those people too have their own story. They didn't just become like that, just like that. Right?
Yeah.
None of us do.
Yeah. So this actually also is very interesting because I really want to explore this as well, that psychology was not a very popular subject back then when you chose it. And you have been raised in around doctors. So tell me how your journey as a psychologist has been, and what have you seen different in Indian context and where you practice, which is UK context. How do you find that different? Because you are seeing different types of clients.
I definitely think I've been fortunate to grow up in an environment where this wasn't the word wasn't normal. It was part of it. So working even in the hospital, working with my father, working in those experiences where what's going on for you is part of your biology, I think definitely predisposed me to be thinking about it in a normalized way. So it began, I think, well, I worked in a hospital setting where we had an integrated medical center where if someone comes in to see the medical team, there is also support from the other people who were earlier seen as alternate medical practitioners.
Right.
It's not now an alternate medical system. And yes, psychology now is a very popular choice. I think it was even then, but people would branch from there into HR and organizational psychology. And then there was clinical psychology. Then there was research. Clinical psychology is working in a clinical setting, which is a little different from working with what we may call the worried well. And by the worried well, it means we're not dealing with dysfunctions of the mind. And when I say dysfunctions of the mind, I don't want to use the word disorder. I don't want to label it. But clinical psychologists work differently. I do work with a lot of clinical psychologists and we cross-refer basis whether I'm the right person for them to see or they're the right person for them.
Correct.
to see. And I'm really pleased to see how it's evolved and changed. And for me, my undergrad degree was in LSR, in psychology, and we weren't thinking about what we're going to become. We just knew that we want to work with people, and there was research going on, there was lab work going on, there was somebody who was applying to go into HR. It was a different world, as everybody says. Everybody feels like their training was a different world. But I do see the change now in India, at least in Delhi, where I have grown up. And I'm very pleased to see that change because it's part of a conversation that was not there, let's say, 15 years ago.
Right.
And those myths are changing because we are changing. Those stigmas are going away because we are becoming more educated and aware. So an entire generation of people that has grown up exercising and doing strength training and going to gyms and also going to therapists is then also going to raise an entire generation of people where it's okay. So it'll take some time, but definitely we're on the right track and the direction has begun. I can't comment on the generation above. And I do also respect that they have their reasons to be married to their traditional ways of being.
Yeah.
But I think conversations like this and so many more exist for them to hear that we respect their ways, but we're just trying to say, here's another way. Can we integrate it together? Can we take a little bit from you and a little bit from this and see where we can go with it? Because there's a huge amount that we can learn from the West as well.
Yeah.
About boundaries, which is a very difficult conversation to have in India, right?
Yeah.
And a boundary doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean I don't respect you. It doesn't mean I don't trust your opinion, which typically is how an older person in India can take it when their child wants to draw a boundary. But it's really just saying, give me the space to own my own agency. I'm now an adult, because that boundary is quite blurred when a 40-year-old is talking to their 70-year-old parent, right? We've been as one, as a collective as always. So maybe if the older generation didn't feel so offended with the word boundary, we wouldn't have to use it, right?
Yeah.
We would just use another word like space or let me decide. And even in that word let, there's something in there, isn't it? Let me decide for myself. We hear that with the Indian marriage, right? He or she has let them do something.
Yes.
Right? And it rankles
lot.
a lot of women now, right? It didn't rankle them earlier.
No.
Right? Because there was less financial independence, there was less autonomy. So we're seeing changes at a macro social level.
Yeah.
And again, biopsychosocial. I don't think therapists and psychologists can operate without seeing what's happening in the world outside. And that includes the protest that's happening today. That includes something else that's happening in the school system. Because the social is affecting the psychological and then affecting the biology. So that's the
Absolutely. And I think what you said was very true, that when we are talking about women, we're talking about their mental health. We sometimes ignore the men. We don't talk about it, but they are very much a part of the whole system.
Yeah.
So we can't be talking only about women.
Half my clients are men and half my clients are women across the board.
Across.
Yeah. Across both. And I find that really interesting, and it's a different way of working for me. And I really champion and welcome the men that come to therapy because it is that much harder for them.
Yes.
I would say it's that much harder for women to exist in society, right? And they do it so bravely, and it's that much harder for men to come to therapy, and they're doing it bravely. So it's an interesting seesaw, isn't it? If more men can come to therapy and work on their tools, etc., and more women can go out there in society, then a slow equilibrium is coming, because some of these gender roles have just been given to us. It's up to us as a society or as a family how we deal with them. And some of it belongs to what in therapy we have contracts, for instance. So it belongs to the contract that you and I may have made without calling it a contract. Let's say when we get married, or when we choose to be in a partnership, which is something quite popular today, or in a friendship. It's understood. You'll call me back when I call you. But it's also okay that I may not be able to call you back. So that's me moving away from the contract. You may not like it. So you may call me back and say, hey, what happened? So I think it's about renegotiating those contracts so that no one is offended, no one is hurt. And it's not about disrespecting the other. It's about slowly respecting myself more, because I didn't know I could earlier. Now I know it. And that's what takes me back to what we discussed earlier. Once I know it, I would say it's quite irresistible. It's really no different from falling in love with another person, right? All of those early feelings, I'm not saying they don't last, but those early feelings of of completely being infatuated.
Yeah.
So when you reconnect with yourself, there is an initial infatuation. That's why people that really come out of a self-love journey are so emboldened, right? Because they're filled with those endorphins. They're filled with oxytocin. And I'm not again saying that that's not good, but I'm saying we've got to tone that down into something every day. So self-care is not a massage alone. It's not a lighting a candle alone. It's not just doing that. It's also saying no.
Yeah.
Right. It's also saying I'm going to take my time, because in the early days when you emerge from therapy, you'll have a lot of I will do this like this forever. Then slowly that forever changes. What happens? So therapy has to be longitudinal. The change has to be lasting for it to work. If 6 months out of therapy you go right back, does it mean I didn't do my job well? Does it mean we didn't work well? No, it just means life happened. And the tools that we were building are very early, they're very nascent. They haven't become part of you yet. Maybe you have a check-in session and you come back. I have some people who come back just for a check-in once a month. We're no longer in a contracted therapy arrangement, but we check in. And I really welcome old clients to come back because we know each other well.
Yeah.
So even when they come back after 2 years or 3 years, there is a connection that is made quite instantly. And I'm really happy to see the changes that have taken place, or sometimes I'm concerned. But we do it together, again, in an environment where there isn't embarrassment or shame, because when you fall off, so to speak, you haven't really fallen off. You've just hit another obstacle, another roadblock that was bigger than your capacity to deal with it. And this takes me back to Psychology 101, which you just talked about. If you read the psychology textbook of year 1, they'll say, what is stress? Like, those type of things. Stress is when the demands of the environment exceed our resources and capacity to deal with it. It's a very simple definition, but it really appeals to me. It makes sense. So how do I build those resources?
Yeah.
So my resources are then a little bit more than what the environment is demanding of me. So maybe we stumble at times. That doesn't mean we haven't grown. It doesn't mean we haven't improved. It doesn't mean we haven't reconnected with our deeper self. We have, but then something big happens outside of us and we fall off and we go back to our old patterns.
Yeah.
But I see it as ignition. Once that spark is ignited, you will keep coming back to that you that you have now healed or worked on. And it's about keeping that quite important and precious and at the forefront. And you may fall off for a while, but come back to it. Because it's waiting for you. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Because you are not going anywhere.
Yeah. But tell me, you said that sometimes it also, go through that infatuation phase when you come to that point of awareness. But do you also go through a phase of shame? Because when you see the patterns that you've never seen before, and when you are able to see that, it brings a lot of shame and you feel very negative about yourself. Do you actually, there could be a phase like that as well?
It can be deeply shaming to encounter parts of yourself that you have cast away. And a lot of blame comes up as well, to yourself, to the people that may have caused you to do that. And that is where therapy provides a really safe, empathic environment to sit there in that shame together. I feel emotional when I think about it, because I have had the privilege of people doing that with me, and I treat that as something very sacred, something very precious, because it is their innermost space and their innermost self. It's actually just all about how they keep on prizing that and move past the shame into acknowledging their bravery at doing that, at taking out the time to do that, and to do that despite the circumstances of their life that may still be going on the outside, preventing them to make that contact with themselves. Because all they're actually doing is contacting themselves.
Yeah.
But when you realize how long you've been disconnected from yourself, I think shame is the emotion that comes in, because you're quite annoyed with yourself. You're quite annoyed with the people or the situations of life that could have caused it, but primarily you're annoyed with yourself because you may have let it happen. I want to put it out there that this doesn't include stuff that happened to us in our early years. This doesn't include the stuff that happened to us as children, because we are in no way responsible for that. That happened to us. And that is something that we have to heal from, usually on our own. If we're very fortunate, we will have family members who can support us on that journey and own their part, take responsibility for the things that they did. Otherwise, it's quite a solitary journey.
Yeah.
And then your therapist does become your co-walker
Yeah.
with you on that journey.
Yeah, true. So tell me about, like, there is usually people also think that that therapy goes on for a very long time and it can be very expensive. Um, is it like that, or do you think people can get breakthroughs early and then, like you're saying, check in once a month, and it is in the range of how you can afford it? Is it affordable?
So people, obviously different therapists charge differently.
Yeah.
Right? Therapists also have to go through intense training on their own, which means therapists also have to be in therapy themselves. They have to have a lot of education, a lot of training. That is also expensive.
Yeah.
So it is a cost of building your practice as well. So it's a service like any other, in that sense that you're providing, except the difference is that you are the product. The therapist is the product that they're sharing. So yes, it does come at a cost, and I feel there is a whole range of charges and price points in that sense available for people basis what they're comfortable with. And obviously sometimes people come and say, for instance, my company is supporting this and I have only 6 or 10 sessions, and then I work with it accordingly. I'll work backwards knowing that we only have 10 sessions. And for some people, that issue is not there and it's quite longitudinal and we can go on. For me, the objective remains that at some point we have some sort of resolution where it is not that we have to check in every week. There is always an intense phase where we are bound to see each other every week, and that's where a lot of the deep work happens. Sometimes I have something going on, sometimes they may have something going on, but for a certain period of time we do have to work together, and those contracts help us to stay regulated. They help us to stay safe as well, because it's a very vulnerable experience for both people to be coming to therapy in that sense. So I think it's important for people to check who they're going to, what they're going for, what that person's background is, what their qualifications are, what their training has been, and there'll be a different person that appeals to every person, and they would go about it accordingly. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's I know that there's a feeling that this is really expensive, and I think it costs what it does, which is different points, because that service is being provided from the self. But again, no different from some other service that you may choose to go for basis what you can afford. Right?
And what about the thing that there are a lot of people who say that I've been to so many therapists, I haven't found one. So how many actually you need to see before you actually know that you've reached the right person?
I know there are people that have been to many people, and I know that it can be quite disenchanting at times, but I don't know if it is that those people didn't work for them, or what happened between the people didn't work for them. Something about that combination didn't work for them, or the method didn't work, and that's fine, right? That's as different as I went to a trainer and this trainer was better for me and that wasn't. So somehow we have a lot of inbuilt skepticism about therapy. If the trainer didn't work, or if I had an injury when I was doing something else, that too gets a bad name.
And doctor might not work.
Exactly.
We are happy to move to another one.
Right. But when therapy doesn't work, maybe because it takes such an effort, I'm just thinking aloud, maybe it takes such an effort to go to therapy. It can be expensive at times. It takes a lot out of a person when they're actually in deep therapy for a while. So there's a natural disappointment with the process when it, so to speak, fails. I don't know if it's failed, because each person that we may go to may be a step up to something else that we want to have. And it's a way to know ourselves better. I don't believe that every person hasn't played their part to what they can offer. Right? It just makes you know yourself. Something about that didn't satisfy you. You were looking for something else. And that's fine too, right? Because it's a very human experience. The therapist only has themselves to bring. They're not bringing another product. So it's very personal.
Very, very interesting, because you might be, a friend might recommend you to a therapist, and it might just not work for you. And they would be singing praises for that person, saying that, oh, it just transformed everything for me and all that. And you go to that person and you don't have that experience. So it's not necessary that one therapist can work for people.
And it is also, I can talk about myself. Gestalt therapy works in relationship. we work in relationship with each other. So somebody may not work in relationship with me and somebody else might. It's a vibe that you create together. It's a rhythm and a momentum. It's a method. And therapists have a lot of training to deal with rejection. The rejection can happen at the introductory call, right? And you may not get called back, and that's okay. But it feels quite personal, right? So it'll be interesting to know how the therapist feels as well when they are rejected. Right? So that's what it is. I'm not coming back to you.
True that. Would you like to share any story where you have seen transformation happen? Just like an example of somebody.
So I wouldn't be able to share a transformation story because those are confidential and sacred. Both. They're confidential and they're sacred to me in terms of how I work with people. But I will share that it is very heartening where sometimes many months, maybe years later, you might get an email from somebody saying, I'm doing XYZ in my life. And it's just something that they've shared. They don't have to. It's just their way of saying, we did well together, or thank you. Without saying thank you. So that is something that I really look forward to when it does come, and it always comes as a surprise. I can share that goodbyes are often difficult because for various reasons people feel they've reached that point. I personally welcome that point because then we work towards an ending. And it's quite emotional because we worked together for a year, let's say every Friday. And now we're going to say goodbye. So we'll take about 2 to 4 weeks to come to that point. And we know then that the tool building has been done. We know that the work has been done. And maybe they're going away for a break or maybe they're saying goodbye. And they come back in different ways. And sometimes they don't because it's a hard stop and they've got what they had to there. And, you know, that spot is then filled by someone else. And you go into a relationship with someone else for that time, which is why you also have to choose who you work with, and they have to choose us. Both. It's for me, everything is co-creation. I am not sitting in any kind of superior position with my knowledge or my wisdom or anything. I mean, you'll have to ask my friends and family how I really am in that context because there are chinks in everybody's armor, right? And clients sometimes have a little bit of awe, they have a little bit of illusion about how the therapist is, how well they manage the people in their life. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Maybe we're all going through the same thing. And we are all going through the same thing. It's just that therapists have had a lot of training to manage it in a certain way. And that's our job. Right? So I'm sorry that I can't share the story, but what I can share is the feeling that is generated when you get that email out of the blue. Just saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. And sometimes it's, I'm not doing well. I'd like to start again. And that's really brave as well, isn't it? I'm not doing well. I'd like to start again. I trust you. You have space. I'd like to come back to you. So I welcome both. And you have to not get attached to every client that you see. But I don't see them as clients. They are people and they're bringing a very, very sacred part of themselves to me. So I really value it and see it. And for the time that I'm working with them, I'm all theirs for that hour that we have together. And that's what I can bring.
There was something very interesting that we were discussing before the podcast about envy. We had touched a little bit about envy and how it is considered to be a negative emotion. And you had a very interesting take on that. So could you expand on that as to why we attach a negative connotation to these feelings, whereas they are just completely normal feelings?
I'll share a little bit of what I've experienced in the West, where someone will just sort of laugh and say, I'm so jealous you got that. And we laugh it off. And it's not taken as a big deal. Now, I wasn't socialized in the West, so I don't know. I can't comment on how that raising is. But in our culture, it is pretty early. Feel happy for the people that you love. Those messages are put into us very early. Always feel happy for others. They're like a mix between moral science and, family values. So that space where that person didn't get what they want, they weren't seen, or they're just not happy. They're not able to be happy for another. Right from the early years, it is said this is not a good emotion to have. And that actually is something we work a lot with in Gestalt. All those emotions that are tucked away as bad to have, right? I'm really comfortable with them because I spend my whole day working with them. right? Uncomfortable emotions, indigestible emotions. And envy and jealousy are pretty indigestible. But the magic of it is, if you find safe people that you can say it to, it just slides off and you don't take it in. You don't feel like this wretched, terrible person for having them, because you're just a person who's feeling a little pinch of something that you really wanted or needed and somebody else has. So when I frame it like that, and if I can receive it like that, not just in therapy, because you're meant to bring this stuff to therapy, like where else will you take it?
Yeah.
But if you've got someone, if you're lucky, you'll have one person in your life where you can go to and say, I feel jealous, I feel envious, I feel bad, I'm not able to feel happy for this person. Oh, that's one of the most difficult things to, I think, come into, because we are not socialized for it. We as Indians are socialized to always feel happy for everybody, even if we don't like that person. And that's a whole other chapter. Yeah. We're meant to like everybody. So,
yeah,
right?
True. So, sibling rivalry is also one of the things that comes from that in that space as well, right? Like where you're happy for them, but at the same time there is this some kind of competition going on, because both of you are eyeing for the same love from your parents and validation and acceptance. So I think, is that a part of that? And how does that?
The parents should come to therapy. That's what I would say. And I'm glad that this current generation of parents is really aware of that. I do really feel, even if you're talking about a 30, 40, 50-year-old child who is the sibling, that does belong to what went on for them. And I do believe that no two siblings are the same, no three siblings are the same. And even if they're raised in the identical environment, especially if you look at developmental psychology, we know that the second and third child comes into the world of the first child.
Yes.
Right? So the world has already got somebody in it. And it's different. And again, in our culture, we'll say, this is the younger one, let them be, this is the older one. So I'm bringing in these cultural nuances, not because I'm working in two places. I'm bringing these in because this is the environment that I know this. Right? And I think that is the work of the parents, because if you're responsible, if you're old enough to bring a child into the world, then you're old enough to have some autonomy, some agency. Hopefully you've worked on yourself, and hopefully you'll be aware that you're raising 2 or 3 different children and they may need different treatment. And don't just put a message out there, because it's being heard differently by different people. And I love this quotation, I can't remember who it's by, that if you tell a fish to fly, it will spend its whole life feeling foolish.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you've got 3 children or 2, or even cousins who are growing up in a similar school, they're going to carpool together. Each one will be different. One will be excellent at something else. One may be not excellent at anything. So we don't know how the subliminal messages of the parents, and in India, the grandparents, impact that group of cousins who's happily going to school on their own.
Yeah.
But we don't know how that message is going to impact them. Or the wow factor we're going to give one child when they get like an A-star report card, and the other person has got multiple stars in drama.
Yeah.
Or something else.
Yeah.
But it's already there in the environment.
Yeah.
It's already there when they bring it to you. So who put that there? And that is linked to envy, to shame, to parenting. So there's a lot of work to be done. That's what I'm thinking as I'm talking to you, that the work to be done is not just individual and what we bring. And I'm glad there are some wonderful family therapists and child therapists and people that are working in India now with families as well, where we can psychoeducate, as we call it, the parents. So when people come to me to discuss their children, I will end up discussing them. We talk about their upbringing, what happened to them, and just again, in that Gestalt lens, making them really aware of themselves. When they're aware, they'll be a little bit more mindful when the 2 kids come in, bringing 2 very different experiences.
Because I think this is something very common that happens, is when you're growing up, the thing that pinches you the most is a comment by your parents saying, look at your friend, how, and they, every time you bring some mark sheet or something, they'll always ask, how much did the other one get? So you're always, comparing it to the other best kid that is there in the class. And you're always made to feel this is not good. I think I should have gotten better marks because I'm always being compared to another friend who's doing really well in school. And I think it comes from the shame that you as a parent go through, because it's you are feeling not enough.
You might be. It might be your old shame. It might be the societal shame. It might be your conditioning. It might be your environment where academic achievement is really important. And that's all. And again, who are we to judge them? Maybe that person had a really difficult life. Maybe they had a lot of financial struggle. Maybe the only way they know how to see success is through academic route. So again, we're not judging. There'll be something in that person's process that causes them to be that parent who says, how did the others do? But what you're asking is also interesting me when you're saying always, right? We're very conscious in the world of therapy when someone uses the word always. The question I would want to put to everybody is that why is it that when we already know this, we can't change? We're all hearing this, we're all doing this, and yet always is still carrying on. Right? So somebody could be watching this and say, right, this is what I've been wanting to work on forever. Can I change it? But then the next crop of people comes and does something similar till they don't. So somewhere I also think we have to psychoeducate each other. Not everybody can come to therapy. Not everybody can afford it. Not everybody is able to make the time for it. So then the ones who are going and have had this so-called self-enlightenment, can we educate each other and say, can we do this differently? So I do think, again, going back to it, it has to change at a societal and a cultural level, not just individual. As a society, I'm glad we're doing it at an individual level, but I'm just saying that's where we have to go. It also shows that we're never happy, right? Because me too, I should be just happy that people are coming to therapy, but I'm saying everybody should be thinking about it, because when you say the word always, it just makes me think, are we still doing that to kids? But then I think if we're doing that to kids, there may be somebody out there that really needs their kid to have a certain kind of success. We're not here to judge them. We're only here to psychoeducate them that there could be a different way to approach the same thing, whether it's about marks or some other achievement-oriented things, because kids are really sensitive to that. And those little comments remain. And we see that in a therapy session where somebody would wince or move a certain way when we talk about something. And that doesn't mean I'll say, when was this said to you? Were you 10? We won't go back there. But we will notice that there's a real discomfort about certain things, and it'll belong to something quite early in them.
Right. So, do you think women, like when you said that not everybody can go for therapy, but if you are a mom, and you have 2 kids, and you have a family, and you have everybody to take care of. Because they say, right, like if you educate the woman, you educate the whole family, because that's where the change starts from. So do you think that it becomes more important for women who are raising kids and who have a big family to take care of, they're working, that they should actually make an effort to take therapy of some or the other?
Instinctively, I just want to say women and men. But I won't say that. As in, instinctively, that's what I want to say. And I think that is the change that is coming in now. I understand that there were various reasons why the older generations couldn't do that. But today, is it just about psychoeducating the woman? Is it not woman and man? Right? So the woman is taking care of everybody. What about the man? Maybe the man wants to take care. Maybe he just doesn't know how. And maybe he too has been put into that category of the doer. The masculine, the role, the strong person, and has left the kids then, kids and his whole family. So if we work on changing that narrative, I fully get your comment. Is it enough to do that? Is it good enough? Yes, in the traditional, the Eastern Indian setting, if you can just psychoeducate the woman, if the woman can get that support, you will see a lot of changes in the household, right? But a lot of the power dynamics still remain with the men. So if it's only happening there and not happening there, then she's then sometimes seen as someone who has now suddenly come into her own. In fact, she can get quite a bad name because suddenly she has diverted away and is thinking of herself. But if we're all thinking of ourselves together, that may make a more robust and healthy mechanism. So I fully get that point. That's how it is. I agree.
Thank you for pointing that out, because now I look at it completely differently. Because the way I was approaching it was, because woman has more responsibility to raise the kids, and how the mother is always present there in front of the kids, man is usually not there, then I think she should take the responsibility. But what you're saying is that unless that balance comes between the man and the woman, both are taking individual responsibilities, this again will probably lead to a sort of a disbalance.
Because from I'm not talking about personal, but I'm saying that when a lot of the men today who are highly educated, highly exposed, are involved with their children, that is seen as a wow factor.
Yeah.
But it's not.
It should not be.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's as wonderful as it should be.
Yeah.
Right? Same for the woman.
You don't have to put them on a pedestal.
Well, then we do that all the time.
But we do that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. True. So, Divya, you were telling me that your dissertation was on PCOS many years back. What were your observations? Why did you pick that topic? And how do you see PCOS?
So I'm really interested in shame. And again, PCOS is something that was not talked about that much. And there's a lot of shame that comes with it because of what it does to your body. There's a lot of hair. There's a difference in how you experience your period. There are concerns about your future and pregnancies, etc. And it's not talked about. I'm really glad that it is now being, well, again, labeled. We don't need the labeling, but we do. It is being labeled as a metabolic disorder, which is actually what it is. It is not a disorder of your ovaries. It is not, an injury into your womanhood, which is how it is seen. And that was a lot of my findings were, I don't feel like a woman. Right? I don't feel like a woman because of what this does to my body. And again, what I found is that people, like young girls, are not visiting the gynecologist. People who are suffering with PCOS, as it was labeled then, are not going to the endocrinologist because there's a lot of haze and confusion around this because there is the stigma of women's bodies. When it's women's bodies, women's health, it's almost like we don't know what to do with it, especially if it involves the reproductive system, right? Now, everybody is talking about perimenopause and menopause as they should, but it involves another system. I am very big on actually going to get your labs done and saying, do I have this? Am I really in perimenopause? It would be interesting to know because there are markers that can show it. But if a woman comes and says, I'm feeling these things, the instant response from the environment is, this is what's going on, so you're talking about it. Because there is an over-talking. Why is there an over-talking? Because no one's been heard. So suddenly there's an opportunity to be heard. There's more conversation around it, right? As there will be. But what is good in the sort of PCOS, now it's metabolic disorder.
It's PMOS.
Yes. So it's been clarified. So I think the dialogue around it will settle. And the same way, if women are given the space to experience their menopause the way they are, the dialogue around it will settle. There is only a rebellion in conversation when it's not accepted. If someone says, yeah, sure, you're going through this, hot flashes, so difficult, can't do this, can't do that, let me support you a little bit, I think there won't be dialogue. So I think a lot of times us women in India get really, passionate about it because that's the only way to be heard.
Yeah.
Same goes for the men. They're really, passionate about things which are not heard. So I do feel strongly about this, and that takes me to something else that is not talked about a lot again, which is postpartum depression. And just like depression is less understood, postpartum is really not understood because you're meant to be the happiest person in the world because you have just delivered this bundle of joy. But there's very little room made for the darkness, the sadness, and the really difficult emotions people go through right after, where they don't even want to be with their child. So if you try to tell that to the older generation, they will say there is something wrong with you. And I don't want to necessarily blame them because they have not had the benefit of psychoeducation, of awareness work, and they have not had these advantages in a way that we've had. In some ways, knowing all this is a luxury.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about a post-partition immigration culture. I'm not just talking about that. I'm saying that entire generation may not have had the luxury to think about some of these things.
Yeah.
So again, we can spend our time blaming them. We can spend our time not understanding each other, or we can say, this is a real thing. It is acknowledged in the West from years ago. It's now garnering steam to be acknowledged in India as well. I could be feeling this. Now, what we have to bear is that no one is going to get us. We will have to explain it. We will have to say, this is what I'm going through. And if there was a doctor who could say, yes, you have this, then I think it would be understood.
Absolutely.
But because it is happening in a psychologist or a clinical psychologist or therapist office, it doesn't enjoy the same credibility. But when we see people who are suffering with postpartum depression, they don't want to go back to their children. And that's okay. Somebody has to say, it's okay for you not to be desperate to go back and sit with your child because you're feeling all these things like a darkness. And I think, again, a lot of room needs to be made for the darkness, which is only ever seen as light. And I think that puts so much pressure on people to be happy all the time, to be robust all the time, when they're really not feeling it from within. And I really hope that we can all champion that in some small way. Just as women, can we begin with doing that for each other? Because we do have similar bodies. We do have similar challenges. And there is a knowing that can then exist. I get this. You don't have to explain it to me. In different ways, for different ailments, for different things. So I think that's a good starting point.
Yes. This is very true. When you said those words, I think I felt like you were talking to me, because my postpartum depression was exactly like that. When I felt somebody up on the third day came to see the baby, and they got like a little gift, and then on top of that there was a label which said, like, dearest whatever, and it said, welcome to the bundle of joy, something like that they had said. And I held that packet in my hand and I'm like, I'm not feeling this.
Not feeling joy.
I'm not feeling this. So is there something wrong with me? Why am I not feeling, like, people are saying, oh my God, bundle of joy. I'm not feeling that. And I when you said that, I just literally had goosebumps, because I felt like you were talking to me, because I felt it. I really felt it. And blamed myself for many years, thinking, how was I thinking like that? But as the sleep improved, the sleep cycle got better. Within 3 months, I got better. But the feelings are real, and they can be very dark.
They can. So, and I really appreciate you sharing that here. Because I can feel something going on in this moment, and you're sharing it. And if I might use this as an example, just talking about this doesn't change what happened then. But there's a little feeling of relief. That all those years back, I was right. There's a little validation. Because that's what happens over time. We begin to feel like we are going crazy. And when someone validates us and says, no, me too. Something is exchanged in that moment. And there are so many people who are out there saying, I know what you mean. That's all it is. It's just one line saying, I get you. I know what you mean. I've been there as well. And for some reason, we need the big validation over that. We do. And that's what comes with professional having a profession.
But I think that's your magic, I guess, because you're so in tune that although there are cameras around, but I think there is a flow of conversation that I can feel, because I think you are connecting at a very deep level.
No, thank you for providing that space, because like I said, this is co-creational. This is only possible because you're being open and you're giving me that invitation to say, ask me these questions. It's okay. Right? So it's got to work both ways. But thank you. And I will say that we all struggle to accept compliments. So I will use this moment to accept your compliment and say thank you.
I'm so glad that I don't know, just the conversation just went in that direction. So that's great. So now coming to menopause, I think I was reading somewhere in the research that around the age of 46, 47, there are a lot of women who actually ask for divorce. There's a very high number of women who wake up around the age of 46, 47 and they ask for divorce. And they are trying to connect it to the perimenopause, menopause phase, that you're going through these hormonal changes. And then, is that right? Or do you think there is something else going on?
I mean, there's no right or wrong, but I'm still on the ask for divorce. I'm still there. Because it'll never just be the woman asking for divorce. It is one of the biggest decisions a couple will make, that we no longer want to go on this journey together. But what might happen for a woman and a man with different things in his life is that some kind of awareness takes place. And when it's in the body, it's that much more potent and powerful, because for some reason, when the mind says it to us, we don't register it. But when the body says it to us, we can't escape it. Right? And then the symptoms or what it brings up for us are pretty undeniable. That doesn't mean we have to leave. It doesn't mean we have to, as you said, divorce or separate or rupture. It means, unless, of course, that is a place that we have already reached where we have decided not to be together anymore for various reasons. And I do feel that that is something that needs a lot of careful thought and deliberation and time. But I think what you're trying to say is that a huge shift happens hormonally, physiologically in the body, and it makes us aware of what we've been holding. There may be a lot of anger. There may be a lot of pent up stuff. Is that a good time to come and deal with that and see if something else is emerging, or should we just channel that into making huge changes in our life? So I'm a lot for practicing the pause.
Right.
You've come into this, you've realized it. Again, doesn't have to be a therapist. Take it to someone that you feel safe with, process it, see what you emerge with, and maybe then say, here are the things I want to change. Because these are big changes.
Yeah.
Whether it is leaving your relationship or leaving a job or moving cities. A lot of people make big changes because they just reach that point of, I'm done.
Yeah.
So I'm for not reaching that point of doneness, because it comes with a certain gusto which is not sustainable. Because we're totally energized with that. And like I said, because the physiology is supporting us, we are filled with it. So how will we react when we're not filled? Will we be a little bit more balanced? So I'm for coming back to base and saying, no, I still don't think we should be together. Okay.
Right.
Because you come back to base.
Correct.
And then made that decision.
So you need to make a difference between where are you coming from? Are you coming from all that bottled up thing which is showing up as anger and revolt?
Yeah.
Or you're coming from the baseline where you are actually figured that this is not going anywhere, and you are then making that.
It's like the old thing that maybe we all grew up hearing in different ways. Count till 10 before you say something.
Yeah.
Count till 3. So process your stuff.
Yeah.
And then let's see. You may reach the same conclusion, but it'll definitely be more amicable. It'll definitely be more pleasant, and it definitely will have less blame game. Right? Because ultimately we are also responsible for our bodies, and we are also responsible for what we endure. I understand that as I say that, I might be saying that as a person with education and with certain privileges. I understand that everybody may not reach that place to be able to say that. And that is what empowerment and psychoeducation is about. Very easy to say, why did you let this happen? You let this happen to you. You endured it. There must be something in that person's story. So in therapy, we are interested in the whole story from the day you came into this world. The difference in Gestalt therapy is we don't stay there. We don't stay with you as a 4-year-old.
Right.
Necessarily. We will say
the past.
We do dig, we do go deep. And then we say, how is it impacting you now? How are you with those people now in your life? Are you still coexisting with them? How difficult is that for you? Because you may not be able to get rid of those people that caused you that trauma. So we're not interested in just opening you up and creating a big rupture. We're interested in processing in a safe way, so that then you have the skills, the tools, and the emotional ability to take that back into your life and then do what you want with it. And then it's yours to do.
True. Wow. This was amazing. Like, the conversation just was amazing. If anybody who's listening to this podcast wants to reach out to you, what would be the best way to reach out?
The website.
The website.
The website is the best way.
We'll put your website details on the description box.
Right.
And then from there, they can fill up those details and then reach out to you.
Right. So the website and Instagram and all of my contact details are there. Different ways to get in touch, but the best way is to send an email, ask for a discovery call, which just means that we'll spend 15 minutes online talking to each other to figure, does this work?
Yeah, I think that would be a great start for anyone who's maybe has been thinking about it, but listens to this podcast and gets that prompt. Maybe a 15-minute call could be
or listens and wants to go to therapy. To whoever they want to go for.
Absolutely.
Or wants to talk more to the people in their life and say, hey, I've got a best friend who's actually willing to listen to all my difficult stuff. Let me start here. So I'm not saying come to therapy. I'm not saying come to me. I'm saying start talking, start figuring out who your safe people are. And when you've got stuff that you feel the people in your life cannot support you with, which will happen, then there are lots of people that you can go see who are trained to be able to do that for you in a way that you don't know yet. And I think that's the magic.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Divya. Thank you for coming and enlightening us with all the knowledge that you have. You're doing great work.
Thank you.
And I hope listeners will actually take advantage of this, and maybe they can comment on the podcast. And if they have any questions,
happy
we'll send it your way.
Absolutely.
All
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Divya. Thank you.